We are in the second part of working with Google Cloud PubSub. We are in the process of creating a Java client to get the messages that are published to the topic. In the previous video, we just configured a new project and the PubSub components in Google Cloud. And in this video, let's see how we can consume those messages using a Java program. I will be using a Spring Boot application for this. So let's get that started. So I'm going to create a new project here using VS Code. So let's start that. So it is a Spring Initializer. I'm going to use Java, and it will be like let's call it as com.vg.gcloud and PubSub, and that's the project name. And let's call this artifact as hybrid. This is part of the hybrid integration. So we are planning to integrate both cloud as well as the on-prem solution. So that's the reason why I'm calling this as hybrid. We will go with the default one. Dependencies, we will just use web. I don't think we need anything else. Spring web. I think that's it. This one doesn't have other dependencies. And let's also create a folder, a new project for this. Let's call this as Spring PubSub, something like that. So it will create the project in this folder. So let's open the folder. And this one doesn't have much other than the regular stuff, like we have SRC resources. We just have some application.properties, which is empty, a Java, just the application name. There is nothing else in this one, and we are calling this as a Spring Boot application. So you can just run this. It's not going to do anything at all, right? It will just run. Let's make sure that it runs. Hope it runs. I don't know whether the terminal is open. Yeah, show the terminal. Currently there is nothing that can run, so we will go to pom.xml and then run without debugging. It's running now. So currently there is nothing. So the application is started, that we started earlier, but there is nothing here. So we will just kill this application. There is nothing here as of now. We don't need this terminal as well. So we need to include couple of dependencies. So first we need Google dependencies. The dependencies are managed by dependency management, that is again provided by Google itself. So the dependencies, I don't know all these artifact IDs by heart, but I will be referring to this somewhere else, right? So it will be pretty much google.cloud, right? And then the artifact will be libraries. It's actually BOM, which is bill of materials, and we will be using a version which is 4.4.0. yes, and the type will be POM, right? So with that, the dependency management, now we need to add the scope as well. Scope is import, right? Whether the dependency management is complete. So we need to include two dependencies. The first one is, so first we need to say the group ID, which will be com.google.cloud, and the artifact ID is Google Cloud core. I need the core. Yes, here it is. And we will add one more dependency, which is very specific to the one that we are working on, which is PubSub, right? com.google.cloud google.cloud, and the artifact will be Google Cloud PubSub, which is here. Yeah, that's it. So we are done with the dependency management. Next, we will move on to creating a one simple Java program. So let's create that file. Let's call this as message receiver. So this is the one that will get triggered when there is a new message, right? So this message receiver, this is going to implement the message receiver interface provided by Google, right? So that is the one. So we need to also implement one small method, which is receive message. So there it is, right? So we get two arguments. One is the PubSub message, the other one is the consumer. So this is already message and this is consumer. All we are looking for at this point of time is we just print what is in the message. We don't need to do anything else. So let's create a logger. This log is from Apache Commons, and let's call this as log factory dot get logging get log. So this will be the same class as this, and with this we are done with that. All we need to do is just print the message. Here the message is going to be message dot get data. So there is one small thing here. So get data returns a byte string. What we need is actually a UTF-8 based string. So I'm just converting this into an UTF-8 byte string, right? So we are done with this processor. So usually here this method will handle the messages, basically handle the message, something like persisting the message into DB, etc., right? And what we are going to do is we also need to acknowledge the message what we receive. But for now, let's comment this, because we may be reusing this message quite often. So that is why I'm keeping it. Maybe we can leave it as it is, right? So this is done. So now we have to declare this as a component so that it gets initialized during Spring Boot itself. So let's declare this component. Yes, this is done. Now let's go back to the original application. So this application, I'm going to declare a bean, which is going to return a command line runner, right? Get command line runner, and we say like this, return, let's follow the usual signature, and that's about it, right? So this will be our method where we are going to do some operations for registering the subscriber and doing some operations here just to registering the Gmessage receiver and things like that, right? So this is the place where we need to do some activities. Let's begin that one. Okay, so the next the first thing what I'm going to do is first we need the project ID. All right, so this is going to be a project ID is kind of a constant. This project ID will come from something called service option. This is again provided by Google. I will tell you how this particular object is populated with values and things like that. There is a static method called get default project ID. This is what we are going to use. And we will also need the subscription ID. You remember what we created during the first set of infrastructure setup, right? The subscription ID what we gave was, it was yes invoice. So this is the value, this is the name of the subscription subscriber what we created during our project initialization. So this is the second step. What we need is the next step is project subscription name. It's quite a bit of activities here. You don't need to understand everything, each and every single line, but these are all the steps that we need to follow before we start consuming the messages. So we will create one more variable. Let's call it as subscription name is equal to project subscription name of, this is nothing but we need to supply both the project ID and the subscription ID. Right. So with this we get the subscription name. Then the next step is to create the subscriber object itself. So let's have the subscriber object. Subscriber, we don't need the subscriber class, right? Subscriber is equal to null. We cannot initialize this here because we have to catch an exception which will be thrown by the subscriber. So it has to be initialized within this try catch. So let's do that. So I'm going to initialize this. This method, initializing a subscriber, is another way of doing it. Again, there is a static method for doing this. So unfortunately this will not show you the methods because we don't have this classes at all. So what we need to do, what we are going to do is at this point of time we will stop here, we will save this, and then we will install the application, because that would get us all the libraries so that we can refer to all the autocomplete and things like that. Let it first go and get all the related information, related libraries. Okay, so this is done. The build is successful. So I'm closing this. Now let's go back to our original try catch. Now this time subscriber is equal to subscriber object. This time we will have a new builder, right? So that is the one it should show up here. Okay, so let's start building this. So new builder, here is the place where we are going to use the subscription name, right? And this is the place where we are going to refer to the message receiver, right? What we implemented in our in this previous class, right? So we will call it as new G message receiver, right? And then we need to call a build method, right? So this is how it is completed. The subscriber is created in this way. So we need to do just two more steps. Okay, so the try catch, let's complete. Maybe that may be the reason why that was not coming. So this time there is one illegal illegal state exception. So this is thrown, and we will simply just do the print stack trace, right? Let me try here whether it is coming now. Subscriber, see, now it is coming. So this is the one that we are going to use. Here it is subscription name, and the receiver is going to be new G message receiver, and with that we will build it, right? So now the subscriber is completed. The next step is we need to initialize the subscriber so that it keeps listening to the subscription. So let's just do that. Subscriber dot async start async, and we also need to call this await running method, right? So with this it is started, and we have to make sure that it keeps listening. Otherwise, as soon as the first message comes, it comes out. We don't need that one. So let's say that subscriber await terminated. Until it is terminated, you just wait, right? You keep listening to. So that is what we are saying. So with that, with this, the application coding is complete. All we are doing here is we are just listening to the subscription, and once the application starts, it has to start listening to the application. But wait a minute, so there is one big thing missing here. Did you catch it? How do we really connect to the Google Cloud? How does the application know which cloud to connect to, and which part of the project it has to access, and things like that? All it has is only this S invoice. This can be there can be many S invoice subscriptions available across the world, right? So we need to connect to a particular cloud. So that can be obtained based on the JSON file that we downloaded while we were creating this service account. I hope you remember that step. Let me open that file what we downloaded, right? So this was the file that we downloaded in our previous video. So it says this is a service account, this is the project ID. So the application knows which project we are connecting to, and it has got some private key, public key, and things like that. And this is the email ID that we configured in the subscription, and it has got some other information as well, right? So using this we need to connect to. So how do we really, where do we configure this, right? If you look at the terminal, so there is a key, there is a variable, the environment variable called Google authentication, right? Google authentication credentials. So we will see that one first. Currently it is pointing to some other JSON file that I have been using. So what I need is I need to configure this JSON file, whatever I have downloaded, to run this application, right? So first let us do one thing. Go to the application, and here in this application I need to print this project ID and subscription ID. right? So I need to configure the log here as well, is equal to log factory dot get log, and this is demo application class, right? And then here I want to print string dot format project is %s, and the subscription ID anyway is hard coded, so we don't need to worry about that. So just project ID, right? So now we have printed, so we know exactly whether we are connecting to that marketing project or not, right? So with this we will close this. Now we need to configure this Google application credentials, what we saw here. So we will save this and clear echo dollar. So this Google application credentials, now it is pointing to some other folder. I want this to point to the JSON file which we have downloaded, right? So here if you look at the folder, this is the file we have downloaded. I am going to just take this path. This is nothing but our downloads. So what I will do is I will just copy the file name. Let me configure this. This is Google application credentials is equal to, the path is my home directory and downloads and the file name, right? So let us see whether we get this file. Okay, yeah, we get this file, so there is no problem. Now we have set this JSON file path with Google application credentials. All we need to do is just run the application and make sure that you get this project ID. For testing purpose, what I have done is I have already posted a message, already published a message. Let me see whether I can delete that message. Okay, once I acknowledge, I should be able to delete that message. So no, I don't think I can do it right now because the timeline has passed. I cannot acknowledge this anymore, but we can do this from the project itself. Here we are acknowledging, and there is one message already waiting, so we may be able to acknowledge, right? So we may be, as soon as we start the application, we may be getting that message, and all we are doing is just log info, get message, get data. Let me maybe print the message ID as well, right? So message dot get message ID, right? So this will be message details, right? This is ID and data, right? So with this, our message processor program is complete. Our application is complete. We just need to run this application. Hopefully there is no error, right? So let's go back to running this application. So it is running. So we need to first to see whether it is showing that marketing as the project name. Okay, so we made one mistake. This one, let me stop this one. Okay, this one must be defined as a bean, otherwise it will never load, right, during the startup. So let us do that. This is done now. Now go back and run this. Okay, so we are running this now. We should get the project name now. Yeah, it is showing technology, then it is not correct, right? It is taking my the other one, which is here, right? So this is the one it is taking right now. So what we need is we need to set the environment variable here in this place. So let us do that. So what I'm going to do is I will take this variable, and I don't want to do export because otherwise it would have an impact on my original thing. So let me take this, and it is in my downloads folder, and the JSON file name is here. Let me copy this and put this file name into this folder. Now let's run the same program. So we have not modified anything, so no touching of code. So we are just running this application. Now hopefully it shows the marketing application. Yeah, it is showing now. So it is pointing to marketing, and look at this. So this is the message we have posted, and that is what you are seeing here. So the message what we posted, the message will not be here anymore because we have already acknowledged it. So even though you use the same subscription, it will not show any message. Yeah, so no messages at all. So what we will do, we will I will take a sample JSON file, right? So any JSON file is okay. So let's go back to some object, right? So let's say this is our sample. All I'm going to do is I'm going to say publish message and post this data. As soon as I post, if I go here, it should appear here because it's already running. Yeah, so here is our message. So this is the one we posted, name, age, and car, and we have received it. You know, it's a regular JSON processing. After receiving the message, whatever you want to do, you can store it in the database, or you can create an XML file, or you can even push this into a different queue locally in your on-premises landscape. So the use cases are plenty of what you are planning to do with this message, but this one is just to connect to Google PubSub and get the details, right? So the Java program is, as such, it is very small, quite straightforward. I don't see any major challenges with this one. The trick is what kind of credentials you are using. How do you use your credential files? How do you configure your service account, and what kind of permissions you give for the service account, right? So these are all some of the things that we need to think through before you design these applications. So with this, our two-part series is complete. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please let me know.